Here's a riddle for you. What's 3.5 inches long and makes me very happy? Why, this, of course. The Raspberry Pi is the new tiny computing device that has got geeks the world over drooling with excitement. It offers 512 megabytes of RAM, a GPU capable of HD video and a 700 MHz ARM processor, all in this tiny board, small enough to fit into the palm of my hand. It's designed as an educational device. The main target audience is school children, but since I'm an overgrown child at heart, I think I fit into that category as well. Now, to make this into a working computer, you will need to add a few things to it. First of all, a power lead, something like this. It's a fairly standard micro USB connector, so some mobile phone chargers will actually work with it, but if not, you can pick one up for a couple of pounds. Next, you will need a keyboard and mouse. Now, I'm just using the USB keyboard and mouse off my old computer, which has been pensioned off recently. Most normal PC keyboards will work. You just have to check the power consumption. So that's that. You will need also an HDMI cable to plug it into a TV or monitor. I just happen to have a spare one lying around anyway. And an Ethernet cable to connect it to your network. If you have a router or something at home. I actually stole this from work, so if anyone's at work wondering why the internet connection has gone down, that's why. Sorry about that. The last thing you need is an SD card with the operating system on it. There are various Linux distributions available, but I wanted something a little bit different, so I'm going for RISC OS, the operating system originally designed by Acorn Computers of Cambridge. It's appropriate for the Pi because Acorn were the original developers of the ARM chip, and this is the original OS designed to run on ARM chips. It's also appropriate for me because I used RISC OS computers a lot throughout the 90s. We had them at school and I had one at home as well. I loved them. But then in 1998, Acorn collapsed, support for the system disappeared, and I was forced to switch to Windows. It's great to be back, even if only as a hobby. Right, well, as you can see, I've got the Pi all hooked up now, and also, as you can see, I've got it in a nice little translucent case. And just as another size comparison for you, it's actually sitting on top of my old Acorn RISC PC, which I've dragged out of storage just for demonstration purposes. This example has 64 megabytes of RAM, 200 megahertz processor, and a 2 GB hard disk, so it's actually less powerful than the Raspberry Pi in terms of computing power, and as you can see, it's a lot bigger. So all that's left to do is turn it on, boot up into RISC OS. There's no actual power switch on the Pi. To turn it on, you simply flick the switch on the wall. So let's do that. Okay, so we've got the Raspberry Pi boot screen going into the RISC OS boot screen. And there we go, we are at the desktop. So yes, this is the RISC OS desktop, and you'll notice it's fairly bare. RISC OS fits into just 4 megabytes of RAM, which means that in some respects it's quite minimalist. My old RISC OS systems were a lot more customized than this, but I wanted to show you the system more or less as it is out of the box. So let's just have a quick tour of some of the features and see how they compare to other systems. One thing I will get out of the way first of all is that RISC OS needs a 3-button mouse for reasons which will become clear later. All the action though really takes place down at the bottom of the screen here. This is the icon bar. It's RISC OS's equivalent to the Windows taskbar or the dock on OS X. It looks a little bit confusing at first until you realise that it's basically divided into 2 sections. The left hand side over here is for devices, your disk drives, network shares, that sort of thing. If we had a printer installed, it would appear here, and for example a USB flash drive, if you plug that in, would also pop up on the icon bar here. So let's just have a quick look. Disks here is to access shared directories from other Acorn computers, other RISC OS computers over a network. Since there's no other Acorn computers on the network, that window is empty, so we will skip over that for now. The second icon here is, you'll see it has :0 at the bottom of it. That is the SD card. And if you click on it, as I've just done, you'll see that you get the root directory of the SD card with all the files stored on it. We'll come back to that in a second. The next icon along is apps, which contain shortcuts to some of the most commonly used applications. Again, we get a directory display, and I'll come back to this in a second, so I will leave that window open. So that's the devices side. Over on the right hand side of the icon bar, you have where the applications live. There are two system applications which are already running. They load at boot up. The left icon here is the display manager, which you can use to display the screen resolution and change it if necessary. The right hand icon here is the task manager, which is used to allocate system memory and also see what tasks are running. At the moment there's not much running, just the pin board and a few system modules. So let's do something about that. Let's get an application running. Now if I double click on Draw, you'll notice that it doesn't open a window right away, but what it has done is installed to the application section of the icon bar, where it is now waiting for you to use it. So to get a new document, all I have to do is click on the Draw icon to open up a blank window. Now Draw is vector based, so it involves drawing with lines and shapes, such as these ones here. If I do a rectangle and maybe a circle or an ellipse, because it's not going to be exactly circular. Now we will put the app into selection mode by clicking that icon there, and I'm going to demonstrate now why you need a 3-button mouse. The left mouse button is called select for obvious reasons. If I click select, it selects the object and it highlights it. You see it's got that little red border around it there, and I can enlarge it and shrink it by just clicking and dragging it, or even rotate it if I'm so inclined. Now RISC OS does not have a menu bar as most other operating systems do. Instead, the middle mouse button is used to call up context sensitive menus. If I click the menu button over this square, it will bring up a menu. I can point to style, then to fill colour, and set it to a nice red, like so. And then I can do the same for the circle. This time I'll change it to a nice blue colour, like that. Now if the left mouse button is used to select, then the right mouse button is called adjust, because it adjusts the selection made by select. So for example, if I wanted to select both objects here, if I click select on the first, it selects it, but then if I click again on the second, it deselects the first and only selects the second object. So if I want to select both, first of all I click on that one to select the first object, and then over the second object I click adjust, which adds the object to the selection. And if I now have both objects selected, I can do various items, actions on them from the menu. If I go into the select menu and group them, that groups both objects together as a single object, which can be manipulated as if it was one object. The other thing I can do, which always impressed me as a kid, it's probably not as impressive now, but I can do the grade function. So there's lots of things you can do with Draw. I won't go into everything now, but it's quite a powerful application. What we'll do now is save our hard work, and if I go to the menu again and go to the save dialog, you'll see that you get this little window here, save as, draw file, OK. But if I click OK, to save, drag the icon to a directory display. OK. Now saving works in a slightly different way to most other systems. RISC OS is a big user of drag and drop. In fact, it was one of the first operating systems to have drag and drop more or less throughout, and it employs it in a lot of places, including for the saving of documents. So if I click on the :0 again to bring up the filer window, and you'll see there I have a folder called Robert Docs. So if I double click on that, you'll see I've got a few files in there already, but to save this, what I have to do is save, and I will type in a file name like that, and if I go drag it like that, and you can see it's gone into the filer window and it's been saved. And I only have to do that once. The next time I need to save it, the OK button will actually work because it knows the full path of the document and it's already been saved before. It takes a little bit of getting used to if you're coming from another system, but I think it's quite a good metaphor. So what I will do is I will close that for now, and we will have a quick look at Paint, which is a bitmap based painting program. So if I create a new sprite, a new bitmap, and I will maximize the window like that, and now let's do some drawing. Just a simple little picture, one that will amuse and entertain people of all ages, just like that. And there we have it, my latest masterpiece. One of the best features about it, I'm going to show you now. If you want to do some programming, it has BBC Basic built into the operating system. If you're a really hardcore programmer, you can actually access Basic in exactly the same way as you did on the BBC Micro. You can type it, go straight to a command prompt and type in the programs one line at a time. So let's do that. If I open up a task window, you'll see that it's actually opened a window that you can type in commands into. So if I type in basic to start the basic interpreter, and so we can type in whatever basic commands we want. So we can do some simple maths. Print 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. Print pi, that seems quite appropriate. If I wanted to, of course, I could actually type in a program this way. So we'll do that with auto to start automatic line numbering. And let's do a very simple program here. For loop equals 1 to 10. Print RISC OS pi. Next loop. And then escape out of that and type run. And there we go. Now, you could do all your programming this way, but it's not the 80s anymore, and there is a better way. The RISC OS text editor edit actually allows you to edit basic code and then save it to disk. So you have a visual text editor to edit your basic programs. So we'll get rid of the task window and we will go to this icon here, which in true Blue Peter fashion is one I made earlier. So if I drag this icon to the edit icon, which is here, and if I just make that window a bit bigger, and this is actually a simple program which I actually found online, which draws a Mandelbrot set on the screen, and if I double click the icon here, it will actually load it straight away, and off it goes. So the basic is limited in some respects by today's standards, but it is really great for hobbyists, beginners, anyone who wants to sort of learn sort of the basic principles of programming. You can do simple graphic demos like this one, you can write games, and if you put your mind to it, you can write fully fledged desktop applications with it as well. Now, if you want to go beyond basic, there are compilers available for RISC OS for C, C++, there are versions of Python and quite a few other languages available, so there's lots of things to experiment with. I will put links and such in the video description that accompanies the video, so if you want more information you can seek it out. And all that's left for me to do is to shut down, and hope you enjoyed this little sample of what RISC OS can actually do.